Our beast.
Bucko, Marty Bucko, hello, and welcome. And welcome, people. Here we are again in Bucko's kitchen. It's been a good while, I was saying to Lee, it's going back 6 months
Gotta be.
since we did that last video in Brunswick Park, in Wednesbury. So we thought we'd share a few things, and we'll begin with Jane's situation of health. As you all know, she broke her leg. She's getting there. She's getting about the home without the crutches, although she uses them still. And I've got to be very careful going out. By and large, we've been happy with the district nurses that have come. Since she left the hospital, she never saw a doctor, and there was district nurses. We probably had as many as 14 different ones. Some would come a number of times, and some came once, and you never saw them again. And what we found was, by and large, all of them seemed very nice, but there was contradictions with each other. One would say this type of dressing should be used, and another one would say, well, favour that one. One would say this sort of lotion or cream or whatever needs to be applied, because Jane, you see, had a catheter wound from the amount of time in the hospital in the groin, which was an open wound, and it was very troubling, very painful, far more painful at times, Jane would say, than her actual broken leg. So that's something she picked up while in the hospital. So one district nurse would say, well, it's bleeding a lot, that's a good sign. Another one would say, no, that's a bad sign. Then another one would say, I think you've got an infection. And another one would say, I don't think it is an infection. So Jane thought, right, we've got to at least see a doctor now after all this length of time and all these conflicting views. So she rang through, and eventually, well, they wanted to send her to a distant surgery, but she stuck with it, and they said, okay, come along. So before this happened, a district nurse took a swab to test if this was, she had an infection. So she got to the doctor's surgery. It was a female doctor. She examined Jane. And she says, right, we've got the result of the swab, and it is, no, you don't have an infection. She says, but I still need to look at it, isn't it? And so she looked at it and says, no, you have got an infection. Right? So go figure that one, though. Isn't it? That's like the times of the testing of the DIVOC, isn't it?
My mum and dad have suffered this with the medical care that they've received. Sometimes it seems to be that the left hand don't know what the right hand's doing.
Yeah.
When you get this conflict sometimes between what they've been told to do, instruction. Yeah.
So in the end, she got a course of antibiotics, the third lot of antibiotics over this period, and the wound now is really healing up nicely. It's still very tender, but getting there, and she's going okay, doing okay. And since that, all the last few months, Lee's not been too good. He's been very poorly with his head.
I was for a couple of weeks. I'm all right now.
And do you find, are you still on this medication?
No, I've stopped it.
You've stopped
All I really wanted was pain relief.
And it's just gone away of itself?
Took it just over 3 weeks.
That's brilliant, isn't it, that it's gone?
Yeah. Worrying now, because I've never had anything like it
not
before.
at all.
I've had headaches, I've had migraines.
Big
not
concern.
like these. Yeah.
Big concern, yeah.
Just give me something to dull the pain so I can crack on and do what I need to do. And eventually it will work its way through.
Yeah. We were touching on what you shared on one of your recent videos on the 1 o'clock news.
Yeah.
Talking about vaccine injuries. We may as well be more bold in saying.
Well, we've just been speaking about this
because
we so far we've tried to not use certain words or phrases which could act as a trigger.
Yes.
To be censored, But if the BBC are coming out with this story, then you can say it's in the mainstream. So I think it makes it a bit safer. There's still no guarantee that they won't pull a video for mention.
We were
you know what
saying,
I mean?
I mean, we could use all the same language they used in because I heard the same clip going in to work in the car at the early morning radio news, as you heard on the 1 o'clock news at your mum and dad's, isn't it? And then it's 7 months down the road, you could find YouTube pull
I think they
these
will. I think they will
videos.
eventually. I've always said it.
Yeah.
You know, it's when the time suits them, they're going to pull any kind of objections to the official narrative.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
But
and I've got it on my conscience that doing these videos, and again another one of the things that we've just been speaking about. See, I'm not a leader. Nobody elected me. I don't represent anybody but myself.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying me and employing me. This is all what I want to do. So, so if it does get pulled, this channel, and disappears and gets completely censored, then at least I spoke out in the only way I know during the period when I had opportunity to do it. And that's about as much as I can do. I don't owe anything to anybody. I don't represent anybody. I'm not your leader. I've not been elected. All I can do is this until I can't do it anymore.
yeah, and
It'll come.
we've got this space of time, isn't it? But we're well aware of the fact that they could bring anything at any given point. It's always in the back of our minds, isn't it?
Yeah.
But as we said, under the height of the nonsense, they would never on the news have said what they said about the injury of particular people.
3 years ago, they wouldn't, would they?
They wouldn't
Even that was
dream of
obvious then.
saying it.
Yeah.
And that video that you did using, instead of code words, the actual words, it would have disappeared in front of people's eyes, even as you're viewing, as you were viewing it. So, yeah. And tell me what you were saying about your American friends again.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we've spoke about previously, and it's current at the minute, and that's Trump. Now, it may be that Trump is sincere and he's going to come in as a saviour and drain the swamp and change everything and kick all these evil people out. Or, which I think is more likely the truth, he's just another player in the game. He's just another actor playing his part to appeal to Trump voters. So I don't think, you know, so far he's been making, like a lot of them, he's been making the right kind of noises. You know, you can't really object to much of the stuff he stands for compared with the others.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't trust him. I think he's just another part of it.
It does appear. I mean,
you know, but I think some of my American friends think, oh well, if you get our man in, everything will change and it'll be brilliant, and you know we'll get rid of all this evil. I think it'd make a jot of difference.
He didn't clear it at the swamp in the first term, so it's unlikely he'll clear it.
He did Operation Warp Speed, didn't he? So he was
pushing that.
For that.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's nothing is suspicious.
Going back to the early days and bearing in mind, some of us came on board we knew what was happening, we were looking at, but we were not familiar with a lot of conspiracy stuff and looking into it. And we had to learn things and learn them quite quick. And so obviously you've got to examine what people are saying and thinking, particularly in regard to Trump. And one hoped for the best. But basically we gave up on that idea of he's going to put things right and arrest the Clintons and all the rest. And it was just the white hats. They had a certain name for it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But...
We'll show.
I tend to feel, his sort of part is just playing the other part.
Let's hope we're wrong.
But he did, as you say, he was pushing this, wasn't he? And exactly the same as Netanyahu in Israel was pushing that on the Jewish people. Big time, isn't it? So you got to question these people when they start doing that. But an interesting point, going back to the summer, July, I think it was July the 9th, 24, when this so-called assassination attempt on Trump happened. I say so-called because it looked staged to me, although, there was something odd about the whole thing. But 4 days before that assassination attempt, there was a film released, major production, American production, with the title of "Thine Ears Shall Bleed." 4 days before he had his ear. What's the odds on that? What's the chances?
Well, it might be coincidence, but it might be a bit of mockery.
No, I'm not having that one. Yeah. But now, since we've touched on films, a quick film shout out, because I watched this a little while back, and Jane and me really enjoyed it. Now, as you know, we're both born again Christians, and there is a company of people, both on my channel and Lee's, who are Christians, and they obviously, like everyone else of the Truther movement, they have stood against the tyranny. But for these people, I'm not saying these are the only ones who would enjoy this particular film, but it's a British film, 1963, and it's called Heavens Above, and it stars Peter Sellers. Would you believe it? As the Reverend John Smallwood, a prison chaplain who is sent by his superiors to a rather posh, snooty parish, and it's just fascinating. And yet it's one of Sellers' probably unknown films, and yet in 1963 it was one of the 12 most popular films. Either in the UK, maybe the UK.
Did Strangelove come out 61, 62?
Oh, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, a great film, and you don't have to be a Christian to watch that. You can enjoy it as well. But maybe one for Christmas. It's not a Christmas film, but it is a Christian film, in a sense, because they're certainly not mocking anything, and he's quite fervent in his approach. A good view. You can get it, obviously, wherever, Amazon or wherever, but you can view it on YouTube. If you just put in Google search film Heavens Above 1963, it comes up, and I think it's the full thing. You can view it, so try that. It's we enjoyed it anyway. Have you seen? You have seen it.
I've seen it years ago when I was a kid. I can't remember much of it.
He is interesting.
The first time I watched Doctor Strangelove, it was way over my head.
Yes, so he played three parts of it?
Well, I'll be about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the politics of it, but as an adult you watch it, you think, oh dear, I was pretty close to that, weren't I?
Yeah. He plays the American president, I think. Yeah, anyway, enough of that one. What else did I want to say? I wanted to
14 minutes.
Okay.
So, we've got 10 minutes left.
So, okay, on October the 17th, 2024, there's an army veteran called Adam Smith Connor in Bournemouth, right? He was arrested for praying quietly outside an abortion clinic, right? He was charged £9,000 and a 2-year conditional discharge. Ordered to pay $19,000. Now, he was prosecuted for breaching a public spaces protection order, which bans protests, including silent prayer, within a buffer zone around the Bournemouth clinic. The judge, Orla Austin, stated that his silent prayer in the buffer zone could have a detrimental impact on those attending the clinic even though he was not interacting with anyone. And Smith said, how can we ask British troops to defend freedoms abroad while fining, arresting and imprisoning people back home for thought crime of praying? His defence and legal counsel said a man has been convicted today because of the content of his thoughts, his prayers to God on the public streets of England. We can hardly sink any lower in our neglect of basic fundamental freedoms of free speech and thought. Now, there's a number of things here to think on, regardless if you pray or you don't pray. Here is a man in this so-called buffer zone. They've designated these spaces. Do they have this, Lee, in any other area, or is it just related to the abortion clinics?
I haven't got a clue.
Is there any other area that you're not allowed to protest, say anything? We know they've passed all this legislation for future protests and things that they know will be troublesome to them. But it strikes me...
That's the bottom line.
There's two things here. One, this is done because they are utterly committed to murdering, let's call it what it is, murdering babies from the womb, killing them off in abortion. They're utterly committed to that and don't want it hindered in any way. That's the first point, isn't it? And secondly, it takes you back to George Orwell's 1984. It's thought crime. Thought crime. Arrested for thinking or praying.
It's going to get worse.
In your mind, in a certain place. You're not allowed. Now, if it can come in here, here's the question. Can it come in other places?
As it suits
with
them.
With other things?
As it suits them.
Because
if it suits their agenda, of course they can.
Yeah.
Nothing
it is shocking, isn't it? Beyond words, really.
And again, we was on about censorship earlier on, so I'm not going to say the phrase, but those clinics, they help keep the population down, don't they? There's less people. If there's less people being born, there's less people.
You think...
So yeah, that fits in with a lot of what they're trying to do.
You think of the people that work there. Mm-hmm. They must be really here in the head. Do you think... I mean, obviously they're on good money in murdering all these babies, and some are not just smaller embryos in the womb. Some of these are almost born children, isn't it? So what type of mindset would want that job?
So certainly wouldn't want it.
Horrible stuff.
Mm-hmm. Need to have somebody. I mean, you're always getting the same arguments, like what about women who have been raped, and all this kind of stuff. It's who don't have the baby, and but still.
Yeah, but you see that this whole thing of it's a slippery slope completely, isn't it? Because once you start abort the unborn, kill. Like they did in Nazi Germany with in infanticide, the crippled, the maimed, the blind, the mentally disabled. Where does it all end? Then you have a group of people, the deemed, the gypsies, the homosexuals, the Jews, etc. And then it goes on to who knows where they'd have ended up if Hitler and his cronies would have carried on and not been restrained by the Allied powers.
Censorship is on about things that you say, right? I can ban you 12 months down the line or 2 years down the line after you've said it. You may have changed your opinion, but I'll ban you anyway. So, by that rationale, will we reach a point where they will come and arrest you and take you away, perhaps, in extreme cases, for opinions you had 20 years ago, 25
Well,
years ago, which is
that's a
unapplicable.
frightening thought, isn't it? Because everyone could be taken away at that point, couldn't it?
It's,
So,
like I say, it suits some, makes us to go wrong.
yeah, so I mean, really, I think I've touched on most things.
Well,
Did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I mean, this is what was on the abortion clinics.
Oh.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about euthanasia at the minute. And the argument,
Yes,
it's
of
about
course.
assisted dying.
Yes.
Now, we know all the arguments, like if you've got somebody who you love, like my parents, let's say my dad is in absolute screaming agony, a living hell, day and night, with no chance of getting better and release. Why would I want my dad to suffer that? Why, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the thin end of the wedge. That's a humane way of looking at it. I still don't agree with it, you know. And I wouldn't want somebody to do it to me no matter how pain. I mean, that's me personally. That's my choice. Other people have got different choices, what they want to do. They, you know. But again, it won't stop there. It's like, what will it lead to? And I've always thought, if you legalise that, right, that's a wedge, foot in the door. Then down the line, again, it'll never be overnight. It'll be 20, 30, 40 years down the line, whatever. It'll be putting you down because you ain't paid enough tax. You know, or or something. Jane, you broke your leg.
Yeah.
We can see you work only part time. You haven't paid enough into the system to require the healthcare for fixing your leg. So you can either sit at home with a broken leg and fix it yourself, or we can put you down like an animal. Yeah. Human life and the worth of human life will be reduced to being shot like a rabid dog.
Yeah. Yes, and I mean there are big issues there. I mean, this really takes you right back to the evolution or biblical creation view. I mean, because at the end of the day, there's only those rolls of the dice. A personal, infinite, living God who's created all things, and that man and woman are made in the image of God, and thereby are precious. That's the crux. Or you have the evolutionist worldview, cosmic chance, chemical evolution. We're just type of pond scum, really, no more important. Who's to say anything is right or wrong? And this is it. When people don't have God, they become their own little gods, and they then introduce despotic, horrible, wicked behaviour.
That's right.
And treat all the dictators. They slaughter their own people. They don't care. But yes. So yeah. But yes, that's true what you said. They introduced a bill or something into Parliament, didn't they? Or is it beyond introducing a bill?
At the moment, I'd say it'll be.
They're looking at it.
Yeah, it's to alleviate misery and pain and suffering, and it's only going to be for people who've got no chance of recovery at the end of it. That's now, right?
And these people
that's the start of it.
Would have had to travel to places like Switzerland and that before, and now they can stay at home and be put down.
But that's going to change into something else. Correct me on this, right? You're more clued up with scripture than what I am. But the first person to rejoice at the coming of the Lord was a fetus.
Oh yes, yes.
The baby was it Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, John Baptist.
Yeah.
Yes, it was John Baptist, wasn't it? Yes. Yeah. That's an interesting point.
The first person to rejoice wasn't yet born.
Brilliant. Nice one, that one. Yeah. Wow, so food for thought on to think on these things.
We're done?
We're done, I think. Right. Okay, so we'll leave it there, and until next time.
God bless.
Be seeing you.